Welcome to Spy Satellites, a podcast about Dune, Imperium, and the people who play it. I'm your host, CJ, and this is Rotation 16, where we're talking with community member, content creator, and Dune Imperium strategy sage, Cheesable. So join us for a roundtable discussion focusing on cards, combos, atomics, and everything spice. If you like what we do, please give us a like and subscribe, and if you'd like to support us, you can do so on Patreon at patreon.com/hiddenassets. Supporting us helps us continue to produce quality content and gives you access to some pretty awesome perks, including voting for the upcoming podcast topic. Tell your friends and let us know how we're doing. We're always trying to improve the quality of our content, and we can't do it without you, the listener. Orbiting Arrakis with me is a Black Shadow, of course. Good morning or evening to you, sir.
I never keep track. These night shifts are a little bit tricky, but I'm going off them shortly, so that's good. But yeah, hi everyone. We'll apologise in advance if either of us sound ever so slightly groggy. It's effectively like 5, 6 in the morning for both of us, so
Yep.
it is what it is sometimes.
That's just how it is, you know. You gotta wake up early to get the day going and get the quality content. Early bird gets the worm, as they say, right?
That's what they tell me, but I never do.
And our special guest today needs no introduction, but he will get one anyway. He's run the Muad'Dib Melee, created content for Dune strategy, including guides for leaders, was a finalist at the second North Carolina Invitational, and if there was a Yoda type in the Dune universe, he would certainly be it. Please welcome Cheesable. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thanks, CJ. That's such a warm welcome. I'm honored to be praised so highly. Yeah, thanks for having me on this podcast.
Yeah, awesome. So our topic today is just generally, we're just chatting about Dune Digital. We have a little bit of things we're going to kind of hit here and there. I wanted to start with the ranked system because that's kind of like the thing right now. Everyone's talking about the ranked system. I've been watching some of your videos, and obviously we will have links below to your channel, so you can go check that out if you have not voted or checked out Cheesable's site yet. Please do so. Also, Cheesable runs the XMO and Uprising ranked system, which you can check out in the Hidden Assets Discord. He uses that for it. And has done a wonderful job with that, with a bunch of community members who have really put together a pretty stellar ranked system. And shout out goes to them. Specifically, I wanted to talk about who is the... Let's see, who works on that really with you? It is
We got Rogerio.
Rogerio, yes.
Yeah.
So specifically Rogerio. Thank you, sir, for all of the work you do on the mod. But yeah, you've done a really great job with the ranked system. Let's just talk about that since I'm already on the topic of ranked system for XMO and Uprising. That's been going on for a long time. And we're in... What season are we in now? Because I don't really play ranked very much.
To be honest, I haven't kept track of what season. I think it's in season 8 for like XMO and for like Uprising since season 3. But at this point in time, the numbers are a bit like they don't really mean anything. Between what seasons they are. I think like with XMO we are at we're an interesting time because like it's like the first time we introduced like really major changes to it, but we can talk about that later. So it's like it's the first like new season with changes, but like with everything else, the numbers don't really matter.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, it's always one of those fun things to kind of like see how this has evolved for me. Like I like following it. I just don't have the time to play a lot of competitive games with XMO and Uprising anymore than I might have been when I was like 5 years younger. But it's one of those things where it's really cool to see how the community's kind of been voting on changes for leaders, and those have been implemented by Rogerio and others, and like really kind of making this a like labor of love project. And I know there are a lot of people who love the system. People come to the channel just to play ranked, So I mean, it's really great. And there's also a site where you can check out like your standings and things like that. Isn't that right?
Yeah, Roger built a website for the uprising rank, so everything now is online. So it's like a different system managed by him. Really well done. Really a label love from him as well.
Nice. The link to that is http://dunerank.servehttp.com. I'll have a link below in the description for you, and you can check that out. But yeah, really, really cool stuff. You also have like a system for bug reporting. I mean, you guys have done so much stuff. It's unbelievable. And I'm only like in the wings, maybe offering some thoughts here and there, but just pretty amazing stuff.
Yeah, so I think you want to talk about like the Dune Imperium Digital system, right? So I think one of the
Yeah.
good things for like the when we got to play in the invitationals is that we got to link up with Dire Wolf. So if you notice, right, the Dune Imperium uh uprising rank system has this like star system that you get to this mentat tier, and then finally you get your elo reveal. Actually, this system, right, was something that I was talking to Paul about, and then I was asking like Paul to like rack his brain on like what did he think like was a good system for it, and this is what he suggested, and so that's what we implemented, and it's very similar to what it is in Dune Imperium Digital.
Mm-hmm.
I think
I, I was
they
gonna
do
say,
it
I
better.
did know as much, yeah. When I did my cover video, I remember you having a conversation about this. I was like, this seems awfully familiar, but it seems a pretty decent system. It seems fairly beginner friendly. It's not overly brutal for anyone in particular. And that's what you should be encouraging, right? Just getting games in.
Yeah, most definitely. Like you should like the system should just be fun to anyone to play and should have like goals that are relatively achievable. Yeah. I think that this like star system and this like progressing from bronze all the way to masters is it's a good system.
Yeah, I like it a lot. It is forgiving in that you can throw a bunch of games before you get to gold and kind of get back into it. Which is nice because it's nice to remember how Ix is, and that if you sometimes get in a weird cycle, it can be hard to get back into like shipping or things like that. You don't always have to do things like that, but you can get kind of locked out sometimes. It can happen.
I mean, we're
Yeah.
fortunate. Obviously, a lot of us have done like obviously our old competitions, obviously with our tournaments and such. So that does help us a bit. But even I found like first going back into it was like, oh, this is a little bit weird. Got to get used to this again. Especially like I think as well because we've done a lot of XMO, having
Mm-hmm.
to like remove IMO, I think, out of the equation. I think that's been a little bit tricky for us a little bit. But from what I've gathered, for those of us that have been played it a lot, that have gone into this stuff, I think generally we seem to have done pretty okay. I don't know. I still haven't played a single game of ranked. It's come out on like the worst 2 weeks it physically could have done. I will eventually get round to it, but as far as I know, everyone's done all right.
Yeah. I mean, I've only played. I think I played 5 or 6 games now. I think I've gotten second place in every single one of them. It's just so disappointing. maybe
I
not. Maybe
mean, this
maybe not
is
every single one.
consistent.
No, it's. I mean, it's. I just love playing it. I mean, Ix is just such a great game. Ix,
It is, it is.
it's so good, and the digital is such an amazing. I've said this on the podcast. I think last week we were talking to Bludgeon, and we really just had nothing but great things to say about it. Well, not everything, but a couple. We had good things to say about it, and there's a couple things that need to be fixed. But those things don't happen all the time. We don't get timed out all the time. It does happen sometimes. But I've found that I tend to play. I don't want to say poorly, but I tend to when I'm commentating a game, and I'm doing this on, on record for everyone, and I'm going to put it on the channel. That I tend to do things like plan out my turn, then go, oh, look at this shiny object over here. I can go do that too.
He's a
Oh, is that
mentat.
better? Is that a better idea? Maybe I should do that. And then I just do it. I'm like, I just completely talk myself out of the best line, which people have commented in the YouTube comments like, hey, you said you're going to do this, but then you completely did something else. I'm like, yeah, I know. It's because I'm talking to you guys, and then I just convince myself to do something else. It's really hard.
It's a tough business.
You know what happened in my I was trying to like document my entire rank journey, like every single game. That was like my initial plan. I wanted to like post every single game. So the first game I recorded, and then I did like I just do a fast edit with like text. But the second game I actually played the whole thing out, talking through the entire game. And the reason I didn't upload that game was because naturally, like I'm a naturally very slow player, and I was just not used to the clock. Like there's a timer, but the timer's not like it is not super indicative of how much time you have left.
Right.
And because I was doing things so slowly and I was not used to the system, when I had one big stripping turn, it just like I just fumbled everything, and then like the game played out my intrigues, and then I felt like, oh, this is such a terrible game to upload,
Oh no.
and hence that's why the first game, it was like non-competitive because it was like so weak, but I wanted to like publish every single game, and then straight away from like bronze to now my master games,
Oh
and
man.
that's why there's this big gap.
I feel like there should be for multiplayer bots there it shouldn't just turn into a bot. It should just be like a pass. Like it shouldn't play your stuff. I feel like that is one of the worst, most egregious things that the AI does. It just like thinks, oh, the best move is just to burn all these intrigues right now. Sounds like a great idea. And then you regain control and you're like, what? Come on. Like
I
it would have been
think
just better if it just passed and did nothing else. Like it just, you went to a space or something, or just forewent taking certain optional like actions or whatever. But like that's a problem. I think that's something that really good point to bring up here.
Yeah, I think it's one thing I wouldn't be completely against is just like yeah, do everything it does, just don't touch the intrigues. That's people get very personal about that, and I can kind of get it, but I think it's something that like I feel like I've adjusted to surprisingly well. Like when I'm streaming digital or when I have streamed digital, yeah, like playing it and whatever else, and still keeping to the time and still to what I'm doing. Like I know some people struggle with that anyways, and there are definitely times when 90 seconds is very tight, and there's an occasional term I'm just like, right, we're just gonna barrel in and do stuff, and we're gonna think about everything we're doing on the fly because we simply can't sit here for 30 seconds thinking about. We're just gonna do the obvious stuff and work out as we go. Because sometimes, yeah, there's a lot going on, and as I've said, like if they bring in when they bring in immortality
Mm-hmm.
and the thought of like doing grafting and shipping and tactiles and everything else in 90 seconds is just not there's no way, there's absolutely no way they're going to be able to do that. So if they don't change the timer to be a little bit longer yet, they'll have to do it for that because there's just 90 seconds is going to be just impossible.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we've definitely
I,
touched on that
actually,
before, but
I can tell you that actually I can tell you that I don't hate the timer and I don't hate the system. I think that like with new systems, there are a lot of pain points like that you like when you first like experience it, like this is not something we're used to, right? Because we are used to playing on TTS and like having it to be able to do everything very like slowly and like we need to do everything step by step to like kind of explain things to people. But um but I think with Imperium Digital, like you cannot like extend the game time by too much because like the current game time it feels nice. It's like maybe an hour, depending on how long the game lasts, and it feels good, right? And it's like these are type of things that you can learn, right? That you just need to be able to like change what we are used to and like just accept that like it requires you to pre-plan your turns and play them out quickly. Like that these shipping turns are going to be messy, so when they are going to happen, you need to be like you need to execute it like quickly, and you can't dilly dally and like think about like multiple options during these big turns. Like during the other turns, sure, but if like you know you're setting up for this big turn, you need to execute it, and then that's fine. That's fine as long as everyone like kind of learns that this is what they need to do. I think it'll work out in the end. It's just
Yeah.
something that everyone needs to learn.
Some people are really harsh on the timers, I think. Yeah, you do see a couple of comments like on the Direwolf Discord for example, whenever they sort of say, "Oh, I lost my game because the AI took a bit of my turn for me." I'm like, is that really true? I mean, if I mean, I have yet to find. I mean, I think I've been like I've threatened a type once or twice, but I don't think I've had a single turn where I have like started doing things immediately and just simply not got it done in 90 seconds. It's just not happened. There's been a couple of times it's been close, usually
Mm-hmm.
involving like Sonic Snoopers and such like that, which does take a while. And I think one thing they could offer to do is like it's just nice having all like the little kind of animations, all the stuff you do. Maybe they need to just streamline them and just make them quicker. Especially with Sonic Snoopers, where it does one intrigue, one intrigue, about that
Mm-hmm.
sort of pace. And that's all time coming out of your bank. It doesn't pause the timer, doesn't do anything like that, and I wouldn't expect it to pause the timer. So I can get why some people are annoyed, and there are going to be occasions where you feel very aggrieved. But yeah, you just gotta it's like obviously with the Muad'Dib melees, which I'm sure we'll get into in a moment. You have to adjust to the settings that you're around, and it's like any competition. You have to kind of play to the rules that are placed upon it, and you have to kind of adjust how you play. If that means a couple of times you just got to crack on with it and not sit there for a while, think what you're going to do. I mean, that's kind of what you got to get adjusted to. But it does mean the games go faster. So yeah, you can get a game done, usually in like an hour, sometimes less, which is pretty darn good going.
Yeah, no, I think that the time of the game when it's played, like the amount of time we actually have, or their sort of target for the length of the game is right. I mean, it's about half of what the actual tabletop game is sometimes, but it's a little bit, maybe a little bit more than half. But I think that the interesting thing about the timers is that it really does keep the pace really nice, and I think that that's great. I just kind of wish that there was a way to like bank time or some way to in those situations. It would be a shame if somebody did lose because they like have a ton of things going on and for some reason like there's so many animations that they weren't able to actually finish their turn. I know that'd probably be pretty rare in most cases if they were really on it and played immediately. But I think that there should be a little bit more like leeway. Either pausing the timer is fine. We've mentioned this last week with Bludgeon, but like the idea that you either pause a timer when things are animating, or you just like offer a little bit of a bank in those later turns, like rounds, like 6, 7, 8, whatever, 9, like maybe a little bit extra time, like 20 seconds per turn. I don't think that would dramatically impact it, especially in the ranked mode. I think would be beneficial, but then I think there's also the issue of, and this is going to what Cheesable was just saying, that the timing is really important because the ranked system refreshes at a particular time, right? Every so often. And
Mm.
so you want to be able to hit those times to get more ranked games in, and that's what they want, right? They want you to get in the game, finish it, and then jump back into ranked. That's like their kind of the system, right? And so if we push it too long, there we run the risk of having the game um, less people playing, honestly, in each queue, and that's not really what they want. So there's an interesting push and pull, and I think that they have definitely thought this through. I just do wish, like maybe for a competitive setting, that they had some sort of time bank or something like that for those situations where things get a little bit wonky, if just a little bit. So. All right, let's see. So I have a couple questions for you, Cheesable, about the way that you've actually. First question is about your videos that you post, and you've been using. It's kind of strange, but nobody's ever mentioned this. You've been using a song in the background, sort of bed music, right? That goes on in the back of your track of your videos for years now. What is that song? Where does this thing come from? Did you like tell me a little bit about that?
Are you about to use them in yours?
No, 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 no. I don't know. I was just curious. I mean, like, I just heard it forever. I'm just wondering what this is, and where it came from.
This 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 song comes from a YouTube audio library. The song name is called URL Melt, and think that when I first started like doing my channel, like I was looking for like a video that could like encapsulate like kind of a Dune theme, and that was like kind of like a bit snappy, and like it kind of like fit, right? And like since then I like tried to experiment on different other songs, but somehow I always come back to like this like my viewers will complain like if I like change the song, and but this is something like everyone seems to be okay with, and and it becomes like my default music. Yeah, so it's called URL Melts, and you can find it on the
URL
YouTube
melt.
audio library. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I've never actually. I don't think I've even gone through the YouTube audio library. Uh, but that's cool. I should check that out. So that's fascinating. I mean, actually, I've never heard it anywhere else but on your channel. That's the thing. Like, I think you think I just randomly would have come across that sound, but like you're the only one I know that uses it. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
All right. So going on, we have a couple of things that we were talking about. Um, so we have a lot of new content creators for Dune Imperium because of digital, and a lot of people
Mm.
playing Dune Digital now. Are there any that you watch? Are there any that you find like really interesting? Or I know you've been very busy, but are there any you're aware of, like those you wanted to mention?
I can tell you that like with Dune Imperium content, right? The things that interest me, at least when it comes to Dune, actually a lot of it is learning. Like that fascinates me the most about Dune Imperium. I think my contents kind of can show it at sometimes as well. So like when the game is new, and like that is the time that I'm most engaged and I like am most excited about. The thing about content creators for Dune Imperium um digital, right, is that because the game is not new,
Mm-hmm.
right, I find like I don't feel that I have a lot to learn from watching new content creators, right?
Mm-hmm.
And these new content creators aren't they aren't like established TTS players. If you look at the leaderboard, you can like recognize a lot of like the TTS players' names. So I don't find myself gravitating to these type of contents. I will like just like kind of check it out, and but I don't they don't get suggested to me on my YouTube feed as well.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've only had a couple come up for me, but it's because I tend to just watch a lot of things. Like when
I
I'm,
do find them come from my feed, though. Obviously, we've talked about Bludgeon. There's a couple of folks that have started getting into it as well, which is good, you know. And it's kind of nice that that's happening. It's good that there are other folks doing it on either on YouTube. There's some on Twitch as well. I feel like we
Yeah,
could, you know, us here at Hidden Assets can ever so slightly take the credit for some of this. I feel like,
no,
well,
I don't think I could take any credit for
I think
that.
we can
No,
allow
no.
just a little bit, you know, as the progenitors. I think we can give ourselves a little bit of a power.
Oh well, well, okay, but I don't really think that that's the point. Is I think that there's some really great content coming out now, and that I think digital has become that safe space for streaming for a lot of people who might not have wanted to get into tabletop simulator streaming or content because it's a little bit too much. It's there's a barrier of entry that I think scares people off, and it made Dune content a little bit more exclusive. I think, you know what I mean. Like we did, there wasn't that much.
yes, yes,
There were some videos out there, but there wasn't any consistent content. I know that the Dune Italia, by the way, Federico's channel, he does some
yeah.
content, and he's been doing it for a long time, and that's great content, especially if you're one of our Italian speaking listeners. And yeah, check his stuff out. I'll put a link below. There's like Just D's does some stuff now. He's a
Yes, that was one of
newer
the ones that's come on my feed. Yes.
Yeah, so he's a newer
Mm.
content creator, pretty good player, and he's obviously doing better than me. He's playing a lot more games, which is great. I have no problem being self-deprecating. I've been not being able to play enough is definitely one of my weaknesses here. But there's some great content out there that we'll want to highlight, and I think maybe one of these days I'll just do like a video of like all the content creators and just like, here you are, check
Here's
them
the
out.
library. We'll
This
take our
is the
twenty
new
percent.
community. Yeah, yeah, absolutely, and hopefully
Yeah,
that
yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think if they reach out to me also, I'll definitely like check them out and shout them out as well. So do link out with me on Discord, or like if like you have some channel and I have not maybe not taken a look at. I think one thing about Dune Imperium digital is that it's very accessible. It's very accessible to like various crowds. You can get into it. The tutorials good. Like, and then it also, one thing about the Dune Imperium is that the board game itself is very big vertically. So
Mm-hmm.
when we play on TTS, like because we want to see everything, the board itself is really small, and then so you can get to see everyone's cards and all the players. And because we're so used to it, like in a YouTube format, like sure everything's very small, but we kind of know what everything is, so we don't really have to zoom into everything. But to a new viewer, to someone who wants to follow like Dune Imperium, it is hard. It is hard if you don't play TTS to follow
Tell
a
me
game
about
of
it.
Dune Imperium on like on a TTS view. But Dune Imperium Digital like puts everything so nicely into this like rectangular format. Like most of the things you can see, like when you hover cards, they pop out full screen. So like there are a lot of good things about the interface and the UI about it, and it's not perfect by any means, but I think they really do a stellar job, and it makes everything very accessible. I think this accessibility is key, and I do see it bringing in a lot of viewers, and bringing in a lot of new players, and also all these new content creators. Yeah, it's great.
If we had a dime for every comment or every time or anyone had said like with
Yeah.
our TTS stuff, I mean, we've talked obviously about this before. I think XMO, I think perhaps was a little bit easier to see at times. We've talked about Uprising on occasion, and I have mentioned. I said I've had quite a few comments saying people can't really see a whole lot what's going on. But that's tabletop simulator for you. Like it's a great enabler in that it gives you access to absolutely everything, but it isn't always easiest to view. Especially like that. There's more and more people. I think I found vast stuff that watches us on mobile, and trying to watch like a tabletop simulator game on mobile is
It's a
yeah,
nightmare. Yeah.
that is not easy. And I always try and find with the tournaments and obviously the various games I cover. Like I try to show things off as best as I can, but it is a bit tricky, and it's a hard balance to find. And you do have to obviously keep in mind like people that are new to the game, newer to kind of watching. You don't want to like leave them out to dust a little bit. So definitely, I think digital is a lot more accessible for them just because you can see a lot more what the heck's going on. It's not always ideal, like you can't obviously see people's hands and such, anything like that, but that's fine. I think it's a huge particular deal, at least for the time being, at least. But yeah, it's difficult. We don't want to like knock TTS because without TTS, this channel wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
So
Well,
without obviously the work of like obviously the Mars Layers, Modius and whatnot, like we wouldn't be here. So it's acknowledging that, and we always said though, like TTS has its limitations, and it's good for what it is. But I've been saying for years, like eventually Direwolf will come up with a dedicated app for Dune Imperium, and when it does, like our content is probably going to start shifting that direction because it should do. It's their own actual thing, way for us to help support them, and ultimately, like the end result's probably gonna be a bit easier to run with than Tabletop Simulator.
well, yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the one issue for me is that the board has become smaller in TTS over the course of time.
Yeah,
It's weird, and proportionately, it doesn't quite fit with the actual physical board. I don't think that the card size, maybe the card sizes, I don't think they match because I think that the cards have gotten bigger and the player areas have gotten bigger and the board's gotten smaller.
Especially for
Um,
Uprising. Yeah.
with Uprising specifically. It was getting a little bit, I think, just that didn't happen with XMO because it was the same mod, which just added stuff
Mm.
as the original one. But you can definitely tell, like, if you're trying to get everything in, like, the board is maybe a sixth of the size of the entire screen, which is really hard to see. And yeah, so we understand all you out there who are like, I can't see this on my phone. Yeah, I can't either, man. I just, I can't see it either. So, and it's very hard when you're commentating it because there's like, it's the small movements, you're following the hands going everywhere, and it gets a little bit much. But so kudos to Shadow for doing most of that for me.
Yeah, as I
Um,
say, it's just like this is all. I've been there, done that. And I've got about 20 shirts in the wardrobe.
yep, yep.
I suppose
But anyway,
I was gonna say while we're on TTS, I do want to have a chat about the Mwadi melees that Cheese was running for a little bit. Your attempt to get Dune Imperium tournaments done in a day. You're a brave
yeah.
man.
Yeah, what about Shadow?
I mean, it was just well, obviously, it was something you decided to do. We had a few of them run, obviously alongside with TTS Club. I thought that yeah, pretty brave trying to get a competition done in a day. Which I do think they went not actually all that badly, all things being considered. But like
Wow, what an endorsement! I'd say they went really well.
I yeah, no, no, I mean, when I say that, I mean like the admin side of it, which people don't think about. And I knew immediately, I was like, this is going to be pretty brutal. And I think there were times that it was, trying to organize 32 people and that sort of thing. Like it's not easy work. So,
Yeah.
but we had what about 3 or 4 of them, I think.
Yeah, so I think the mod did really stems from a point that um some people like the I really love the tournaments that y'all hold, but scheduling is a nightmare. Like I call like after groups like it's a game about scheduling rather than a game about Dune.
No
Um
kidding.
and 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 so like having like a structure that could get people to come together and to play for a couple of hours, so like maybe like 8 hours, like six hours. I felt it was ideal if like the community wanted it. So when the community was interested and there were signups for it, I posted it, and when the community like stopped signing up for it, then I just stopped hosting it.
Mm,
And I think like because of like the structure of it, um, like there are a lot of like pain points that I had to learn as well, like of with like what kind of system works and what kind of system doesn't work. And I mean I with your own tournaments, I'm sure you'll also learn these pain points. And
Hmm.
I if I have to host one now, I'll definitely host something similar, but I would definitely take whatever I've learned and like apply it.
Yeah, until you try it, like you don't know. But I mean, like I say they were good times. Obviously, that had its impact because then obviously you had to get the games done, and that obviously then we had to obviously like make sure that we had like like the 2 hour timers for games and whatnot, bits pieces like that, and then that all went from there. But they were good times though. Especially I think as well like having the 1 day competitions, like doing them so regularly because of course when we do our big competitions, I mean you can't have those being done every week. They're pretty serious. Arduous at times undertakings that take a fair amount of time to get through. So I think it was an idea to like kind of like have them running kind of a bit on the side as a bit of a something a little more constant at least for as long as it was running. But they were good times to get involved in. Just at times, yeah, like looking at the admin side and like trying to sort all that out. I was like, goodness me. And having to get all the rooms sorted out. It's like you're playing with them and them and them, and then you're going to this game. Like, yeah, that's it's hard enough to do that sort of thing in person, but doing that like over a message forum on the fly,
Yeah.
yikes.
that's not easy.
Actually, you know what the biggest admin issue with the Muad'Dib melee was? So context to everyone, Muad'Dib melee is like a 64-man tournament that you kind of play 3 rounds, and I mean the ideal situation is that you have 64 players come, you just have like 3 rounds of knockouts, and eventually you have a final four table, and then you have a final winner. The the constraint that we thought there would be an issue is that the games will last too long, and then everything will kind of cascade. The issue that we ended up facing was that the signups didn't match up with who did end up appearing on the day itself. So like people would sign up but people didn't show, or people who would show but they'll show up like 20 minutes late. And because they showed up 20 minutes late, everything would cascade. Do you wait for these people? So like the show ups was the main issue with regards to the tournament.
Yeah, I mean,
Wasn't wasn't there also
it's
something with
logistics.
the timers, like you, because we were talking about timers earlier, but there you had put in clocks to XMO a while back, and like the idea was like we'd have a quick game, and this initially kind of like a way to stage and show that timers would work in a competitive setting.
So the timers was set in place so that like the next round will start at like a specific time, right? So that the games will start at a certain time and the games will end at a certain time. And that's why I thought like the need for timers was like I needed timers to be there. In all the mod games, actually it only came out an issue in one of them during the last mod day, but like where there was one player who played egregiously slowly. I think he played like more than like maybe 10 minutes over the time, that kind of thing. And then their game, I couldn't join their game because they set their player limit to 4, so I couldn't like come in to like moderate the game. So that was like the main issue with that particular game. But that was the main idea with like why clocks, why I managed to find a version of clocks and add them into like a save file for the tournament, which eventually got added to the mod because it became so popular a version. Um, and now clocks are their own issue, but that's why clocks have been added into XMO.
But they've been, I think, a very useful feature when playing the game to see who's taking the. It's funny because a lot of people would go like, "Look at you! You've taken only a minute to take 6 rounds. Like, how is that? You know, like you kind of like poke at people for their speed more so than how long they take. I found like people go like, wow, they've only you're not even thinking that much. Like, good job, you know. But it's kind of a fun thing to do and have. I've never run into a situation where it's been overtime, honestly, but I haven't played that much with them since moving on to Uprising, so I haven't had a lot more of that experience, and I haven't been playing ranked. But I always found that they were fun. I just didn't really have an issue with timers in the game anyway. Like I think that there's more than enough time on the timer. I think what do you start with, like 15 minutes, 12 minutes, maybe not even that much.
To be 20, I think,
Is it
originally.
20 minutes? Really? Do you have 20? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, 20
Initially, I
minutes.
started like 20, 25 minutes was the initial tournament timer.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, for an hour per player, or for an hour total. Yeah, that makes sense.
No, 25
Oh, sorry,
minutes
sorry,
per
sorry.
player. So it's like, so yeah, so it goes up to
Two
close to
hours,
two
about two.
hours.
Yeah, 2 hours.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and that was like, very rarely was people didn't want to take that long. I mean, the whole timer thing, I know it comes every now and again, and it's a bit kind of like, your margin is going to vary. Some people are like, it's there. Some people find it an interesting curiosity. Some people do live quite heavily by it on occasions, and that does spark up bits and pieces from time to time, which is what it is. But I always like, well, it was brought in to basically help the melees actually run on time, obviously, and they definitely serve the purpose for that. And obviously now we've got timers in Dune Imperium Digital, which is kind of weird because it's like obviously the alternative rather than having just an overall time bank, which is kind of what you have to do in TTS because it's not sophisticated enough to have X amount of seconds per turn, which I think is ultimately probably the better way to do it all in all, rather than having an overall time bank. You kind of got to work with what you got.
Mm-hmm.
Can
Now,
you
I have
imagine?
a.
Yes, you give someone a minute, then okay, and on a minute, you'll play out all your intrigues and resolve your turn point.
Mm.
Oh my god. Yeah, I can imagine. Like, imagine if that was implemented in the Uprising ranked or something like that. So the Dune digital, like that'd be so hard. Like, because you have to drag everything around, like something
Yeah,
ridiculous like that.
exactly.
I did have a question for you, Cheesable, about Uprising versus Dune Digital, and we have so much Dune content right now. I mean, we've got Ix and Immo, we've got Uprising, we've got Dune Digital, base game and Ix, and ranked. How does the game, and this is more of a question, sort of like a big picture question. I wanted to hear your thoughts on it. How does the game avoid, or does it avoid, um, dividing the community into different pods of players? And do you think that's a problem or can be a problem?
I think we have to accept the fact that the community is already divided. I think when Uprising came out, like it did divide the community. Like the concept of Uprising is great in the sense that like there should be a new start to like Dune Imperium. Then you can add a lot of new fresh ideas to it as well. You can fix the things that we think were bad and also introduce new ideas. So like Uprising did a lot of great things. And also it's a very good entry point. Like when you have a game with too many expansions and then it's so much bloat for someone who's buying a physical board game. So having him able to just have a fresh new entry point to play like a full complete game is great, but that we have to accept the fact that Uprising has split the Dune Imperium like online community. So like in terms of games that are being played on TTS, it's almost 50-50 when it comes to like XMO games and Uprising games. I think it might be even 60-40 towards XMO. Like there's still like so many people playing XMO because it's really a very good game. And the communities are really split. And now with Dune Imperium Digital coming along and then now there's this like dude people playing just X, right? I do think that the community is split, but I don't think that the community is split in a manner that is cannibalistic. Like in
Mm-hmm.
some sense, you have people that are just playing whatever they feel like they're gonna do for that day. So like you see a lot of people who are active on TTS who are also on the Dune Imperium Digital leaderboard, and you see a lot of people who will just join any game that is being hosted. Like, okay, I have time for a game. Like, see who's looking for a game, and then I'll just join that particular game. You have like a few specific people who are diehard into this or that, but then, uh, yeah, I think overall, um, as long as there are new people and as long as the community is vibrant and alive, I'm quite happy. But I do acknowledge that the community is split at this point.
Do you think it's a possible issue that the two games, especially XMO to Uprising, can be quite different? I know this is something that you mentioned about, and a few people have mentioned about, especially those of us that played a ton of XMO and then moving up to Uprising, and like to start with, find it quite difficult to make that transition. Do you think it's really difficult to like play both games lots and feel like you're good enough at both at the same time?
I can tell you that the transition from X immortality, like the skill set you have, does not translate to Uprising very well. I think I mentioned this a couple of times about
Yes.
how like my own process of learning Uprising I had to unlearn a lot of things that I learned from what I knew Dune was to be about. And so I do feel that the transition itself is not easy for these players who feel like when you play Dune XMO and you feel and you know what you're doing and you feel as though you have a path to win, and then suddenly coming to Uprising and you feel so lost because someone is just putting in a sandworm and you feel yourself, okay, I have no way to fight this.
Mm-hmm.
The contrast is very very big, and Shadow, what was your exact question again?
Oh, it's like, do you think it's difficult that? Do you think it's just difficult for people to be feel that they're good enough at both games at the same time because they are very different? You know, they do
Yeah.
have different
So so
demands, different skill sets.
So with Uprising, right, personally for myself, it took me over 30 games for me to get a basic understanding of like what I should do. But this is not an issue for new players. For new players who come straight into Uprising, they don't have this issue. It feels great from the get go because they don't have like
Yeah.
these like things that they have to like unlearn. But for XMO players, I do feel that that there is this barrier, but I do think that I do have very high hopes for like the Bloodlines expansion. I think
Mm.
Bloodlines expansions will add enough things that will feel familiar to XMO players that they will consider playing uh, Uprising with Bloodlines.
Yeah. That's what I'm hoping too. Because for me, like I remember the feeling of playing Ix and Immo or just Ix is a thrilling, like exciting experience. I always feel like I'm progressing. I always feel like I'm pushing toward an end game. And in Uprising, I feel like I don't have the same progression half the time. Like most of the time, I like doing well in the first couple of rounds, and then I just like can't move any further. Like there's like a wall half the
Yeah.
time. Like and it's possibly because of the way that the worm engine starts churning, right? Like people start getting
Yeah. Combat.
those things, and then you're like, I can't get in there. How do I
Yeah.
get there?
Yeah.
And it's really hard. It's really hard. It's like a 2 round, maybe 3 round process to get the things to just get set up. And if you're caught without access to worms or worm without hooks, and you are going into round 6, you might be completely out of the game. And there's
Yeah.
really not much you can do about it. And I think that feeling is harrowing. It is to me.
It is.
Yeah.
You can't try. You can't. It's not that you can't do well, but it's that you can't play around with the system that you could in Ix and Immo. It like the kind of traditional Euro game. I'm gonna pull some levers and see what works. I'm gonna grab this card. I'm gonna see what works with this card. I'm gonna do some things like you can still do that in the card area, but when it comes to like text and the like making up ground, there's no real way to do that. I feel.
Yes.
And that's why I've kind of gravitated away from Uprising back to Ix in digital form, because I go back to it. I'm like, man, I get that feeling again. It's one of those things that really keeps me going. It's like there's something about Ix, the way that it broadened Dune Imperium and gave you multiple paths to victory. And not only are there multiple paths, they're all fun. Like every path like, is fun to try, and it feels like it's woven into the play of combat so well. And obviously, I think that maybe the complaint is that you can win without combat. It's like, how can you play a Dune game without fighting? Whatever. I mean, I don't really have I don't really care about that much. And my first like when I played Dune Imperium like base game, and a lot of players have commented on my play that my favorite thing to do is Spice Must Flow, and my favorite thing to do is like win one combat. That's it, and then just like churn through points like by like planning that path out. I find that really hard to do in Uprising.
Yes.
I think you can do it, but I think that it's much more punishing because of the way that the points jumps work. And if you're not contesting combats all the time, you're giving someone an edge in a very serious way. And you need to be getting in there, right? You need to be contesting those, getting those points, and taking them away from other people because of the way that they double, the way things double. And so you can't do that as much. You can still do it sometimes. I've seen it. I've seen you do it.
It's brutal.
But
It's brutal.
It's really brutal. And another point that you were talking about, both Shadow was talking about, you were talking about, and Cheesable mentioned, was that newer players don't have the same feeling that I'm getting, because I've been here since the beginning of with Dune Imperium. Is like they've come into Uprising and feel very much at home, very excited, and I'm so happy for that. It's one of those things, like it is exciting. It is a very, I think, stressful game, but a lot of new players are not finding that, and I'm really happy for that. I went to a local meetup, and some of the players were like, "Let's play Dune Uprising." I'm like, "Cool. I haven't played over the table in a long time. That'd be great." And I also hadn't played Uprising in a little while, and proceeded to like just get completely stomped because I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot. I need to combat things in this game, otherwise I'm just gonna lose. And yeah, some of the new players are just like super into it in this group, and I think that's really great. It is something that for old folks like me have to figure out again. Even I mean, we've talked about this at the Invitational as well, Cheesable. Like, how do you even do this game? Like, you were like, yeah, it's really hard. It took me, as you said, 30 games, and I found that I'm still struggling with the game because I don't play it enough consistently to get the muscle memory down. I think about what to do, where to go, and what to do. I'm constantly like, I just want to push buttons. I'm like one of those kind of players. Like, I want to do different strategies every time. I want to try different things, but I can't in that game. I feel like
Yeah.
I just don't have the opportunities to do those things because it always funnels you down the same path. But in XMO,
Yeah.
I feel like I have that chance, you know, and so that's why I've been feeling that kind of like exhilaration again, with Doom Digital. So I don't know. Does anyone else feel that way? I mean, am I like alone in this kind of island?
I
I can
do.
tell you with Uprising, right? So with Uprising, if you want a single pointer to how to approach Uprising, is hooks are not important, right? But combats are,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you want to be able to not lose troops for stupid reasons because the combat snowball themselves when you when you get combat rewards, you get back troops. So when you put in troops, you want to get back something. So as long as your troops are not dying for no reason, um, that is a good outcome. And hooks are
Mm-hmm.
not important in terms of like tips wise. But yeah, so that I mean that's the uprising thing. But in terms of like uprising at this point, like the people who have been playing it like seriously, I feel as though we have kind of figured out like 90% of like the knowledge to it. Like so like most things are figured out. We know what leaders are good. And in terms of like skill differential at that top level is so narrow. It is so narrow now because it is a base game. When it comes down to it, like it's a base game. We know what cards are great. We know what things can happen, and and so I'm a very big advocate to like we should just throw in the base leaders and like so we can add in some variety at this point.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. 100% agree with you. I mean, why not? I mean, they really mix things up, right? I mean, like having Leto discount Ilbon, I don't think would be busted at all. Like he really doesn't have a lot of spaces to abuse. There's the troop space, which might be an
Yeah.
interesting change. You know, like a combat Ilbon sounds really kind of cool. I mean, you could have done that back in the day, but it was all because you were drawing swords and drawing things. But
Yeah.
I think that he's got some interesting potential. It'd be nice to just have like a Paul, a regular old Paul, like Paul versus Muad'Dib. That'd be
Yeah.
fun. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, he's really not great, but I think it'd be kind of interesting if people could make use of his peak ability. I know that Shadow loved him a lot in XMO.
Mhm.
Beast
Yeah.
seems amazing.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness, mate! I haven't even put a lot of thought to it. I'm like Beast Raban in Uprising just seems like just potentially so destructive.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's
I
one of the
think in like
reasons. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Gen Con, yeah, in Gen Con, Leto was like the finals winner. Like the player who played Leto in the Uprising game won. I think that's what happened. Um, yeah, and I do. It's now just about like whether like the mod team would add them in as an option. And yeah, that's all that kind of like is restricting with regards to like whether it cannot be done.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely can be done. It's just like, you know, can we get someone to do it? And if they do, like, will people do that? Well, is that something people are interested in? I think it's worth exploring. And I know that there's so many creative people in the community, and so many talented, you know, programmers and things like that, that we can figure this out. And I think everyone would be kind of interested in that because, yeah, it is still new. Uprising still kind of has that new feeling. I think it's taken a little bit, I want to say, longer to catch on in the board gaming groups. I've just noticed like a influx of people wanting to play it like now. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe it's because of digital. Like maybe they play digital and like, oh, let's try Uprising and stuff like that. But
Hmm.
it seems to have taken a lot longer to catch on than Imperium did back in the day. Um, but maybe I'm wrong about that, and I hope I'm wrong about that. It seems like, you know, in my little bubble is different, but I have like a couple board game groups that I meet up with, and you know, there's less interest in Dune than there was back in the day. Maybe that's just because there's so much of it out there now, and maybe they've played it before. But yeah, I do hope that we can continue to iterate on Uprising. That's one of the reasons I have my custom list. I'm constantly feeling like I want to introduce new ways to do things. Um, and yeah, the base leaders are a great way to do that. Absolutely.
I think
Yeah.
your custom list is your custom list inside the mod already, or is it Paul's custom
You
list
know,
that's inside the mod?
I don't I don't know. I know that
Someone
somebody
was messing about with
mentioned.
it. Yeah, someone was messing
Is it
about with it.
up?
I think there's a file going about. I think with it, funnily enough.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, I know that somebody mentioned like they put it into a JSON and we're going to do something with it, but I don't know if anything happened with it yet. I know that Paul's list was being implemented or is being implemented in the Uprising mod, I think.
Oh, that's
Um,
really cool.
yeah, it's pretty cool. I haven't played with that one since the North Carolina Invitational, and I would love to do that again. I remember that being very fun. I don't know. Have you done any design in custom uprising stuff there, Cheesable?
I did think about like if I was to change Uprising, what would I change? I never, to me, the intrigue deck is what it is, but I have never seen it as like one of the levers, one of the main levers to like change the pain points about it. I mean, there are some there are like maybe one or two intrigues that or in the intrigue deck that feel really powerful, especially at certain points of time in the game. That if it were removed, I would be quite I would prefer, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not something that like Dispatch Envoy is like a cool card. So Dispatch Envoy is an intrigue that has like that allows your card to have like all four faction symbols, so you can send any card to like a faction space, right? And I think these cards are. I mean, if you ask me to add it into the intrigue deck, I'll say like, yeah, sure, just add it in. But when I think about like pain points I have with Uprising, my pain points currently some leaders are too strong and some cards on the row are just too. There are some cards in Imperium deck are too strong as well. Like
Yeah, I
these
agree
are
with that too. Yeah.
the two main. These are my pain points.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree with you there. Especially since the base intrigue, or sorry, the Imperium deck is smaller than the one I have. I have like 115 cards. I think it's like less. I think it's like 60ish, 50ish cards. There's not very many in the Imperium deck. Um,
Mm,
the reason I'm saying like it's I think you're right. There are a couple cards in the Imperium deck that I would take out as well, and I did. I took some of them out,
mm,
and I think that bringing the power level more to the middle as opposed to having it stretched out is very important because there are some cards that when you buy them you clearly are at an advantage. Like there's some that I think Strike Fleet's a potential problem at times. I think that sometimes not Gurney, Stilgar is a potential problem sometimes just because the rest of the cards in the deck do not match up with that power level. Like just getting two free troops is so massive in Uprising. Like troops are everything. And just having that kind of like passive effect, the beast effect, right?
Hmm.
From uh, base game, getting two troops was such a massive thing that if you just have it on a card and you can throw them in, that's like huge. I'm not saying that that's a potential like a huge game breaking card, but if you get it round one, it can be. Obviously, spy. No, what is it?
Guild Spy.
Guild Spy
We've
is a
talked about
problem,
plenty.
which I've taken out of my version, and there are a couple other minor ones that I've cut, and I'll talk about that on another one. But the main thing I wanted to and the mentioning about the intrigue deck, and there's nothing wrong with the intrigue deck as it is. It's built specifically for that experience. Some aspects of Uprising, I think, are very restricting, not just in my view, but I've seen it with newer players who are trying to get into Uprising and end up with like a bunch of stuff they can't use. And so I like wonder about that a little bit. And maybe that's the of their play, like they didn't use them well enough. But there's no way late game to like churn that, or there's no ace up the sleeve, I think. And when there is, it feels like it's a little bit. It's like rewarding the person who's usually doing well already. And I think
yeah.
that creates that stratification and creates it so that one player's at 12, one player's at 3. Like that feels a little bit weird. Cheesable, do you have any thoughts on
Yeah,
that?
no. So CJ, I think my response to that is that I have games where I end up with 4 points as well. Um, and it's not as though you're playing the game wrongly. It's just that if like one moment happened differently, you would be at 10 points, right? It's just
Sure,
that
sure, 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 sure.
someone else had that combat intrigue and instead of you, and so that person won the combat and that person got the points. But it's not as though you played that game wrongly, right? You are setting yourself up for a situation where um to win, and that happens to just have you at 4 points at the end of the game, and
Yeah,
it's not your fault, and it happens to um anyone who's trying to win at Uprising. So it might feel bad as like when you compare scores at the end, but um I think you should just take it as though you lost the game because of the situation, and you could have won, and like you could have won and you could have like been at 10 points, and it's just happened to be this other player, and it's just how Uprising is, and the
yeah, yeah,
points are not indicative of like your value as a player or how well you played the game. You played the game well, just that you have 4 points and yeah, you didn't win.
Take my four
Yeah,
points and go home. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. No, I get it.
it happens to me. It happens to me.
No, yeah, I get that. I get that. I just felt like and I again, not hand waving or anything like that, but um, one of the things I appreciate about Ix and playing digital is that even when I lose, I feel like progress was made. I feel like I got somewhere. Like I was so close. Like I was so close. Like my recent game, I was like 10 to 13. The person ended up having like two like end game in hand. I was like, not much I could do about that, you know. But it was
Yeah.
like spice tiebreaker otherwise, you know. And you're like, oh, I got there, or I almost got there. Uh, I don't get that feeling when I play Uprising half the time, and
Yeah.
I don't that it's a me thing. Let's just put it that way. But I always feel like when I'm playing it, I am struggling against the system, and I don't make that much progress. And I feel like that's one of the things I love about board games is that at the end of the game, when you look down on the board, and this is a friend of mine who used to tell me this all the time. He used to say like one of the things I love to do is look down on the board and see what I created, see what happened. Is there a story there? And Dune is mean. There's lots of mean things that happen in that game, and sometimes I feel in Uprising I can't look down on the board and see what I did. Uh,
Yeah.
I don't have any progress, or it feels like I don't have enough progress, and that's what I'm hoping. I guess just to bring it back to what we were talking about, that's what I hope happens with Bloodlines. That Bloodlines gives you another sense of progress as you're going along, creating an engine, maybe finding other pathways to combat, other ways to get points, things like that. And yeah, I'll leave it there. But I'm hoping that that's where we get with this new expansion is that it makes it so I don't have that feeling. For a game that I love, also feel like slightly disappointed in. I wish it didn't give me that feeling of I didn't do anything at the time. Like Anyway,
You know what you should
yeah,
do?
yeah. Go ahead.
Is, okay, see, I think like the like when you look at the points, right? Maybe you're looking for the points to tell your story. But I think in like Uprising, the battles will tell your story, and right,
Mm,
and maybe because like I like you don't remember the past few battles, but like you just need to remember that one battle, and because everything hinges on that one battle, like that should be indicative of like how your game goes rather than like your points. Maybe you should
hmm
consider
I mean, that's why you're our guru. I mean, you have these
that.
kinds of amazing answers that, I mean, that just cheers me up a lot just to hear. I mean, you're right. I should be looking at a different aspect. I shouldn't be looking at the output. I should be looking at the journey. And I feel like sometimes I don't in that game because I get disappointed with the output. You know what I mean? And I think that that's a really good point you made. Yeah. If you're if you're in the boat as where I am, or I feel like I just am not making much progress in Uprising, skill wise, or when I'm playing it, I'm getting a little disappointed. Just think about that. Just think about the battles. Think about what battle told your story. That's a very Dune way of looking at it, actually. You think about it. It's what makes Dune interesting is these little micro events that shape the world, right? That shape the universe, and that's actually what the books are about anyway. So I think that's a really
This is
aptly
getting
put.
way too philosophical for like 7:30 in the morning, man.
I'm sorry. Okay. All right, Cheesable. Should we wrap up? Should we just ask you a couple more questions and done?
Um, maybe we can talk about maybe I can talk about like the XMO the rank system or like
Oh
the
yeah.
so yeah I think like it's a good I also want to reach out to the community a little bit. So with XMO the rank system in this season 8 we implemented some I would consider relatively major changes to multiple like cards in the game that we found were problematic, and we also like really were quite heavy-handed on some of the leader changes. We made some leaders way better, and we made some leaders slightly worse, right? And the thinking process behind it is twofold. One is that I didn't want people to go into each game of XMO like having to feel as though they have to pick this one or two leaders. If not, they'll lose the game. So like if you see this leader, you have to pick it. So then you take away like player agency, and like people like lose the enjoyment of like picking like leaders they like. So I feel like that was a problem like leader wise. And in terms of card wise, there were some cards that um everyone knew they were too strong, and every time you see them like you have a certain reaction to seeing them on the row. And so like just to like kind of pull their power level down slightly so that they're still powerful but not insane, and to like push cards that were um that just took up space on the row to be something that players would maybe I'll consider playing this. And so that has been the underlying driving force behind the changes. And how they've been implemented is that I've actually I asked the community like, can you all come together and like, I need to form like a committee to kind of discuss this. So I had a committee come together, and then I just asked them like a bunch of questions, and from there these are how everything has like come about. And this is what it is now. And I do think that even some of the harshest critics of like no changes have come around to say that they actually quite enjoy this. And I'm quite glad that the community has enjoyed the changes.
Yeah, if you want to participate, if you are someone who likes XMO ranked and have not had a moment to share your thoughts, you can do so on Hidden Assets Discord. XMO Rank Talk is where you can find that. There's also an Uprising Rank Talk for any thoughts you have about that ranked system as well. Please go and share your thoughts for Cheesable. He does take all your thoughts into account, and there's been a very, very lengthy and in-depth discussion about potential changes, not just to characters but to Elo and things like that have been very, very fascinating to follow. Some of the things, obviously, I'm not a computer programmer or someone who deals with statistics all that often, so it goes a little bit over my head. But some of the things I think are important and are all considered for the next season. So thank you all for joining in and helping out. And if you want to, you can. All right, last couple bits. I think that I've been trying to do this. I'm going to try to do this for any of our guests on. I just have a couple of favorite questions for you, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So yeah, do you have a favorite movie, sir?
Stardust.
Stardust. Is that the fantasy epic movie? And like has
Yes.
really
Yes, the fantasy epic movie. Yes.
that has like Robert De Niro's like a pirate, a sky pirate in that
Yes.
for a moment.
Yes.
Oh
He's
my
the Sky
god,
Pirate.
I
Yeah.
saw how that is your favorite movie. That's amazing. I love that movie. It I saw that in theaters years ago. Amazing.
Yeah, I did too. How many years ago? 17 years ago, I think, roughly.
That's right. Wow. Fascinating. Never thought I would hear Stardust on this podcast. I'm not gonna lie. I was thinking of the classics and things like that, but no, wow, that's a really good movie, and it's one of those underrated gems, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Do,
Uh,
do do check it out if you like fantasy, bit of romance. But yeah, it's just a very feel good movie.
it is very, very good. Awesome. What's your favorite food?
What's my favorite food? At this point of time, my wife's cooking, and I hate the hospital food. But if you do come to Singapore and are looking to eat something, do eat local food, things like nasi lemak, which is like this like coconut based rice, or just Hainanese chicken rice. I think like these are two good options in Singapore if you do like swing by the region to check out.
That sounds pretty good. That sounds delicious, actually, and I'm getting hungry right now. Do you have a favorite book, sir?
Do I have a favorite book? Yes, my favorite book is the one by Patrick Rothfuss. What's the first book of that series? Um, Name of the Wind.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. Nice, nice,
Yeah,
nice.
that's my favorite book, but I don't think this series will ever be finished.
Do you have a favorite streamer?
Doesn't have
Do
to
I have
be
a
us.
favorite? Do I
Yeah,
have a
and why isn't
favorite?
it Shadow?
Uh, do I have a favorite streamer? So, my favorite streamer is probably watching the Race to World First for WoW. I currently like watching like Maximilian Red Lead Team Liquid, and they just won the Race to World First for WoW. Um, that is probably my favorite streamer at this point.
And maybe this follows up with the next question, but your favorite video game?
My favorite video game. Um, I am a very big uh Dota player.
Oh.
Um, like Dota is like my entire childhood.
Why are we not
Um,
surprised?
my favorite video game would be probably like Warcraft 3, right? If to pick like the the game and all the customs, and it's starting like Dota, and playing like Dota on Warcraft 3, probably that would make it my favorite game. And so like yeah, Warcraft 3 over Dota 2, but playing Dota on Warcraft 3.
Nice. Yeah, that's where it started, right? It pretty much
Yeah,
started out. Yeah, yeah. That's awesome. And finally, favorite board game that is not Dune Imperium.
my favorite board game that is not Dune Imperium. Oh, this is a tough one. Um, my recent favorite experience. Okay, like when I play board games, I play with specific groups, and I think the most important group now is the one that I play with my wife. And the game that we play the most, I think, and we enjoy the most, is probably Unlock. Um,
Oh yeah.
So it's like yeah, it's just think like escape room in a board game. So like whenever the new series comes out, it's almost a highlight for us, and we will just order it and we'll play it. I think that's my favorite. But if like, and we also enjoy legacy games, but there haven't been many good legacy games that can come out. But I think Rise of Queensdale is one that I would shout out as well. I don't think you can get a copy of now. I think it's like out of stock and out of print. But if you do get a copy of Rise of Queensdale, it's a really good legacy game as well that I think is really fun. Uh, yeah, also really fun adventure.
It's a cooperative adventure, right?
So Unlock is cooperative problem solving. Rise of Queensdale is like a competitive. Um, is competitive type of board game that you kind of like do a bunch of stuff that constantly changes. Um, yeah, check it out if you have the chance, but it's out of print.
I've not seen it. I mean, I have a there's a shop nearby that sells used games, a lot of used games. So I could check see if I can find it there. Yeah, I've heard of it, but I never really looked into that one. So yeah, will do so. Thank you, sir.
Yeah,
Awesome. I think that's gonna wrap it up for us. We've gone over an hour, but I hope you all enjoyed the chat today. Thank you, Cheesable, for coming on the pod, and I wish you well, and we'll talk soon. And if you are interested, you can find all this stuff on Cheesable's, all of his videos on Cheesable's website or Cheesable's YouTube channel, excuse me, which is linked below. Check out his leader guides. They are excellent. They're excellent for Uprising. And yeah, so you've been. Oh yeah. Well, one thing you've been jamming Imperium Digital. And did you get to Diamond already?
I'm at. I'm not sure what it's called.
You got to master, didn't you?
Did you get to
Ma
Master
no, no, it's
Masters?
not. It's not Masters yet.
The one
I'm
before,
not
I think
even
it's
sure. It's
platinum.
Platinum,
Platinum?
Platinum or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Nice. Yeah, I'm not there
yeah.
yet. I haven't played enough games to do that, but that's pretty good. Awesome. Well, you can find that on Cheesable's YouTube as well. Hey everybody, this is Future CJ. Cheesable wanted to thank a couple of people in the community after the recording stopped, and so I wanted to reach out and say their names. So first of all, he wanted to thank Priceless for doing an amazing job getting the 3v3 community really thriving. This has been such a great community. Priceless drew me into a game a couple days after the recording of this podcast, and I had an absolute blast playing 3v3. And it is now going to be my like go-to Uprising content because I had so much fun. The only thing is taking 3 or 4 hours to play the game is a little tough, but if you can find the time, reach out to Priceless and we'll get you in the games. Asmodeus, of course, our mod chief, who's been doing such a great job fixing and updating and making sure the mod is just absolutely stellar in TTS. He's worked on a new 3v3 mod that has a little different colored meeples for the commanders so that they know, and it's much more visually apparent which player they're sending the agent out for. And it has a very streamlined system so that you can click a button and just give that person the bonuses. So it's very well done. Just big shout outs to him. And yeah, there's a lot of other people out there, but those are the two he wanted to highlight. And so thank you all for listening, and back to the pod. And that's going to do it for us. Thank you all for listening, and we will see you next week or next time on Spy Satellites. Take it
So,
easy.
others.
Kudos.